Hello guys, welcome back to the Rev Games Academy. In this video, you will learn how to create simple pathfinding using NavMesh in Unity. If you want your game characters to move intelligently through the environment, avoiding obstacles and finding the best path, then this is the video for you. By the end of this tutorial, we'll have a working pathfinding system. So what exactly is a NavMesh? In simple terms, a NavMesh is a virtual map that defines the areas your AI characters can walk on. Unity uses NavMesh to help AI agents, like enemies or NPCs, figure out how to move around the game world. It ensures they avoid running into walls or other obstacles. The best part? NavMesh is super easy to implement in Unity. You can create paths, make your AI characters move, and even handle dynamic obstacles like moving enemies. Plus, Unity's AI navigation package makes everything much simpler. Before we start building our pathfinding system, we need to install Unity's AI navigation package. Let's click the Window and Package Manager. In the Package Manager, select Unity Registry from the drop-down Next, search for AI Navigation. I have already installed this package. You can simply click the Install button to add the package. Once it's installed, we're ready to begin. All right, let's get started. As you can see, I've set up a simple example scene. Here we have a player ground and walls. The first thing we need to do is bake a NavMesh. This means we will define which surfaces are walkable for our character. To do this, go to the hierarchy, right-click, and create an empty game object. Reset its transform and rename it to NavMesh. This game object will handle baking our NavMesh. Next, add a NavMesh surface component to this game object by clicking Add Component and search for NavMesh Surface and add that. Now, you'll see a few different settings in the NavMesh surface component. For now, just click Bake. Unity will create a NavMesh for us. All the blue tinted areas represent surfaces that the character can walk on. However, you might notice that the character can currently walk on walls. Also, the NavMesh considers our player as an obstacle. To fix this, we need to edit the Include layers in the NavMesh surface component. Here, we can select which layers to include when baking our NavMesh. We don't want to include the player layer. To set this up, select the player in the hierarchy, go to the top right corner of the inspector where it says Layer, and add a new layer called Player. Assign this new layer to the player. Now go back to the NavMesh game object and update the Include layer. Uncheck the player layer. Click Bake again. You'll see that the NavMesh now ignores the player. We can also adjust the bake method to use either render meshes or physics colliders. Let's move on to agent settings. In the NavMesh surface component, you'll find a setting for agent type. This determines the properties of the AI agent navigating the NavMesh. You can open the agent settings under Windows, AI, Navigation. Here you can customize the agent's radius, height, and step height. Step height is especially useful for characters with how long are the legs. There's also a setting for max slope, which determines how steep a surface the character can climb. The NavMesh will bake based on these agent settings. Next, let's make the walls unwalkable. Select all the wall objects in your scene. Add a NavMesh modifier component to them. This component allows us to override NavMesh settings for specific objects. In the NavMesh modifier, enable override area. Set the area type to not walkable. Bake the NavMesh again. Now the player can only walk on the ground. You can also customize which agents are affected by the NavMesh modifier. For now, we'll leave it set to all agents. With our NavMesh ready, let's move on to controlling the player. Select the player game object and add a NavMesh agent component. This component enables the player to navigate the NavMesh. The NavMesh agent component has several settings like speed, angular speed, and acceleration. You can adjust these values to fit your game's requirements. Next, let's add a script to control the player's movement. Create a new script called Player Controller and open it in Visual Studio. First, declare two public variables, one for the camera and one for the NavMesh agent. In the update method, check for a left mouse button click using input get mouse button down 0. When the click is detected, cast a ray from the camera to the mouse position using screen point to ray. Use physics raycast to check what the ray hits in the scene. If the ray hits a valid surface, set the agent's destination to the hit point using set destination hit point. This lets the player click anywhere on the NavMesh, and the agent will move to that location automatically. Now, go back to Unity. Assign the main camera and NavMesh agent to the script fields in the inspector. Click play and you can see that we can click anywhere on the level and our agent will try and find the shortest path there. You can further tweak the NavMesh agent settings to improve movement behavior. For example, increase the speed to 8, the angular speed to 180, and adjust acceleration to 15. Finally, configure the stopping distance to 0.1 for more precise stops. And there you have it. We've successfully set up a simple pathfinding system using Unity's NavMesh. Now, your AI agents can navigate intelligently through your game world, avoiding obstacles and finding the shortest path with ease. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Rev Games Academy for more awesome game development tutorials. Got questions or ideas for future videos? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, happy game developing.